The Miami Dolphins in 2013, I thought were going to have a chance to sneak into that last wild card spot in the AFC. There were some things that I liked, even though I didn't agree with all the money that they spent in the offseason. I wasn't sure how much that was really going to help the organization. And frankly, I don't know how much it really did. The Dolphins ended up going 8-8, and they did end up missing the playoffs. They weren't that far off, but a loss in Week 17 to the Jets, where basically if you win, you're in, that just can't happen. And there are several reasons for that. Now, ultimately, Jeff Ireland was fired as general manager, which needed to happen because he's the one that spent big money in free agency on the people like the Mike Wallaces and what have you. He was the one that allowed Jake Long to leave. And surprisingly enough, the biggest weakness of this Miami Dolphins team in 2013 was their offensive line. Some might say, well, the combination of Lamar Miller and Daniel Thomas at running back wasn't all that great. Maybe it wasn't. But Hartline had over 1,000 receiving yards. Wallace was okay. He wasn't great. Wasn't worth the money that you gave him, but he was still okay. Charles Clay emerged as a nice, versatile weapon that you could line up in the backfield. You could line up at tight end. And Ryan Tannehill showed some improvements, made some strides to me in year number 2. But ultimately, it's this simple. Ryan Tannehill is your franchise player. He is your franchise quarterback. And he took a beating this year. He was under siege the entire year. The Miami Dolphins, as an organization, should be counting their lucky stars and being thankful to the gods every day that Tannehill didn't develop a serious injury or get shell-shocked or anything like that this year because he was under siege. You let Jake Long go via free agency, and maybe that was the right move. But again, this isn't a situation here. We're back in 2008. This organization, instead of taking Matt Ryan, number one, when they needed a damn quarterback, played it safe and took the offensive tackle, and 5 years later, it doesn't fucking matter. They still had to take another young quarterback anyways, and now Jake Long's not even there. Dumb dick decisions are why certain organizations are in the position that they are. And the Miami Dolphins are just a mediocre organization because of mediocre decisions they make. Paying too much money to mediocre players such as a Mike Wallace. Way too much money for a guy that's never going to be able to deliver to that price and deliver to that number. Defensively, they're okay. They're not special, but they're okay. You can make the playoffs with the defense that the Miami Dolphins have, even though they could use some improvement, I feel, maybe even in the secondary. But the offensive side of the football, what a mess they had at one point in time this year with the whole Jonathan Martin, Richie Incognito situation. What a train wreck. What a disaster. You lose 2 members of your starting offensive line due to this. And to me, it could have been something that really tore up that locker room and divided that team and ruined the season. It ended up not doing that, but it ended up hurting the team in the long run because 2 of their 5 starters on the offensive line weren't there the rest of the season, just leading to Tannehill being under even more duress, under more pressure. It's really sad because you got a kid in Tannehill that I think has all the ability in the world that right now I would definitely take over RG3. And, I said back before the 2012 draft, you can laugh at me, but we're only 2 years in. I thought Tannehill was going to be the best quarterback out of that 2012 draft class. Yes, you have the emergences of the Russell Wilsons, obviously, and the Nick Foleses, and you have the Andrew Lucks already. But Tannehill, I feel, is just as talented as every one of them. And whereas they placed some emphasis in the offseason on surrounding him with some weapons, they gave some big money to Brandon Gibson to have him there in Miami. And yes, he was doing some nice things before he got hurt. You spent big money on Mike Wallace. Charles Clay played well. But if you don't have a line and you can't protect your franchise piece, eventually you're just playing Russian roulette. And you're setting yourselves up for disaster. And you're potentially really setting your organization back long term if Ryan Tannehill starts to get gun shy in the pocket because he's always afraid he's going to get creamed and walloped. It's a natural thing. It's going to happen eventually. You can't continue to allow your franchise player to be under siege and not protect him better. The Miami Dolphins have moved on from the general manager. Maybe they could bring in somebody more competent than Jeff Ireland. Let's hope. Philbin's still the coach there, but if they don't make the playoffs in 2014, I have to imagine the Dolphins ownership would be ready to move on from him. This is a talented team. This is a team that I feel can make the playoffs. But they did disappoint me a little bit by losing the Week 17 matchup against the Jets. They had everything to play for. The Jets, in theory, had nothing to play for except trying to save Rex Ryan's job for whatever reason. And the Dolphins basically went out and laid a fucking egg. Laid an egg. Terrible and unacceptable. Next year, the Dolphins need to be better, and I feel like they should be better. But the biggest key component of that is going to be addressing their holes, their weaknesses, their deficiencies as an organization in the NFL draft and in the offseason as a whole. I'd have to assume Jonathan Martin will be gone. Richie Incognito may very well be gone. They need to find, at pick number 19, a franchise left tackle, a blindside protector for Ryan Tannehill. Is that somebody like Taylor Lewin? Is that somebody like Cyrus Quandijo? Is that somebody like Tiny Richardson? I don't know yet. But one of those guys you would have to assume will be on the board at number 19, and that's the guy that the Dolphins have no excuse but to take. And then in the second round, and then in the third round, they need to draft offensive line again. They need to find a right tackle. They need to find a couple of guards to play with Pouncey there in the middle. What a shame that you have somebody like Pouncey at center and your offensive line sucks. Such a talented center, and your offensive line sucks. You must protect Ryan Tannehill. So if you watch this video and you're wondering what my thoughts are on the Dolphins in 2013, they could have made the playoffs but failed to, and have nobody to blame but themselves. The Jonathan Martin, Richie Incognito situation hurt the team, not so much from a mental distraction because they kept it together, but from the Jimmy's and Joe's standpoint of they were missing two starters off their offensive line. And ultimately, you're not going to be that successful in the NFL if you don't have depth at the offensive line and you lose a couple of your starters there. You're just going to be under siege. You're not going to be able to open up consistent holes in the running game. So if the Miami Dolphins can address these things and they can get youth and depth and talent all throughout their offensive line, they will be a better football team for it in 2014. Tannehill will probably throw for over 4,000 yards, might even potentially sniff a Pro Bowl appearance. Think I'm nuts now, but we'll see. They've got to help the kid out, though. They've got to give Tannehill more protection, more time, and more help, period.